Interesting.
And I found that very encouraging too. And so we all liked him for this very nothing that he looked at and said, recognized us. But a huge change in that moment, that particular job too, again with that maitre d', typical German, you learn this work, once a week you go to a school of your trade, in this case hotel school, where all the kids from the area came. And after 2 years there, the teacher asked us to write an essay, what we now think about our business. Going back to work that night, I was cleaning a table and I watched that maitre d', approaching a very important table. Well, they were all important. In that moment, I realized, I'd seen it before, I never realized it. The guests on the table were proud that he came to them. And he was a very tall man, he worked in tails and he worked fantastic. And I thought, wait a minute, this is a reversal. Why are they, we are here, we are the servants. And I thought about that. I had to write an essay that night for that school. And I thought about it, and I wrote the essay. And for the first time in my life, I came to the realization, which kind of formed my life too. The reason those guests were proud that he came to them, because he had defined himself as a first-class gentleman. And I realized, wait a second, I can define myself, even if I was a dishwasher all my life. I don't have to be a bum. I still can define myself as a first-class gentleman.
How does one do that?
By respecting others, by being honorable, by not going against authority, if you will, by coming to work 5 minutes early and stay maybe 5 minutes later, and say, I respect what I'm doing here, by saying good morning to your boss and not ignore, not hate him, but be thankful that he exists, because otherwise I wouldn't have a job. So I still can define myself and do everything I do a little better than anybody else.
As simple as it is, how powerful is that?
Don't complain about business. It's ludicrous. When I started Ritz-Carlton, I only took the job. Remember, I had a great job. I had golden handcuff. I had everything. In fact, people may hear it that worked with me. I was a young star in that company in Hyatt at the time, in charge of 65 hotels in the United States, food and beverage operations and so on. And I left for a dream, for a purpose, to create the finest hotel company in the world. Because they told me you can do what you want, basically operationally. And I went there for that purpose. But I had to ask myself, is that purpose good for all concerned? First of all, is it good for the owners? Because believe it or not, friends, you won't have a job without some owner. That was clear to me. Number two, is it good for every employee? It wouldn't be good for the employee, it wouldn't be good for the owner, because we wouldn't have a job. Is it good for every customer? Is it good for society as a whole? And I question myself, would God approve? Once I have this, can answer that clearly as yes, I cannot compromise it anymore. And now I have to find myself as the person who can do it. That's it. It is not a matter of just having a vision. That vision has to be of value to all concerned.
That makes sense. When you got that call at 23 to go to Houston, was that Hilton or was that Hyatt?
It was Hotel Corporation of America, which became Sonesta later.
Okay.
And so I went to Houston. Frankly, I didn't stay long. Very short, because I was totally new, and when you have cultural beliefs, they're sometimes very stupid. And the first day there, first of all, I lived in a Y, no air condition, and I got there late June. I've never experienced heat like that.
In Houston?
In Houston. And next door I worked, and the first day I worked as a waiter, actually, I was there a few days. First day I worked as a waiter, I had an order of fish order, and I looked, where are the fish knives and the fish forks? I had worked in the finest hotels in the world, mind you. And they said, what is that? And I came to a conclusion, I'm working for barbarians. No fish knives, no fish fork. Cannot be. And they live with a situation where human beings shouldn't live with this heat. I thought, I didn't know there was air conditioning.
And so, Houston is pretty hot if you're coming from Europe.
You better believe
it. Yes. My wife's from Houston. It's very hot.
So I called a friend of mine who worked in San Francisco as a waiter in a French restaurant, and I said, I'm going back. This is the barbarians. They serve fish without. How ridiculous can you be? That shows you how silly we sometimes have beliefs, our beliefs that we set because the culture is sometimes very silly. We have to look into it. So I left there, took the bus to San Francisco, worked in San Francisco, started in a restaurant, but then I worked back in the hotel because I wanted hotels, and worked for Hilton, and afterwards joined Hyatt.
How long were you at Hilton?
With Hilton, I was not long there, but then I went to the club and back to Hilton. I was with Hilton for nearly 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
What did you learn at Hilton that you took on with your career?
Well, process of of what you do, or the organization, because I worked for a while in catering, selling, how you organized sell, and so on. So I learned, but not traditional service, because we have kind of all forgotten what is table etiquette and so on. I learned that when I was a kid. Believe me, that made a deal. Everything had to be 100% correct. But in Hilton, it was working and systems. I realized that every effort has to have a process. Started learning that, and then I joined Hyatt.
Is Hyatt where you made a name for yourself?
Yeah.
Because is Hyatt where you wrote your first book, or was it at Hilton?
No, I read that basically after retired. And the book was written. I became quite good friend with Stephen Covey, and Stephen was urging me to write a book about what we had accomplished with Ritz-Carlton.